tonight.
Lionel, is that you?
There, I think I got it. Bruce?
Yes.
It's Lionel.
Hi.
Hi, Bruce.
Hi, Lionel.
Hi, Bruce. How are you?
Hi, Lionel.
Hi, Bruce.
How are you?
Pretty good. As of
Are you fine?
I are fine. As of right this moment, how long is it till you retire?
As of this moment, it, I think is about 116 days and 20 some odd hours, maybe.
Now, that doesn't mean you're going to retire from life. You'll still do the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
You're just retiring from your daytime job.
You're retiring from daytime drudgery.
Daytime drudgery. Well, here's what I don't understand. I'm like 2 years and 3 days older than you.
Yeah.
And I'm not retired. I don't even see that on the horizon.
Oh, well.
Although my son is slowly driving me nuts because he's hanging around the office, and I think he's thinking.
He's eyeing up the empire?
He's eyeing up the empire, saying to himself, can't the old man shuffle off?
Yeah, he's gonna have an overthrow coming up.
Yeah, that's right. I got a kind of feeling I won't be that shocked. All right. Speaking of overthrows, man, you segued right perfectly into this. Speaking of overthrows, you know how we're going to get Gordy to be the president of the NMRA?
I've heard rumor to that effect.
Yes, that's our plan. And it seems to be going reasonably well. However, we do invite anybody else that wants to run for president of the NMRA. We invite anybody and everybody who runs for any sort of office for the NMRA to come to contact the podcast, and we'll give them equal time.
Absolutely.
Which brings me to tonight's point.
Oh, is that what this is all about?
Yeah, well, there's a guy. There's a guy lives somewhere near Boston, in Massachusetts. Bee Gees song.
Yes.
Now I'm gonna have to put that in the. Now I'm gonna have to
put that.
Yeah.
Well, you see, you missed out on some Springfield stuff coming up. So
That's true.
Get it going now.
Yeah, Tom Jacobs.
Just so people won't go through withdrawal, and Tom Jacobs will be slitting his wrist.
Yeah, that's right. Tom Jacobs' favorite version of that song, the Bee Gees.
And the light went out in Massachusetts the day I left her standing on her own. Tried to hitch a ride to San Francisco.
That'll be, hey, you know what? Our guest is still in the green room. That'll be our first question. What was his favorite all-time Bee Gees song?
Oh, there you go.
And Gordy Robinson, who is I think he's the director, the worldwide director at large.
I think he's it's either, worldwide director at large or at large worldwide director, but anyhow, it's larger and worldwide.
Yes, he's on the board, and he was also going to join us tonight, but he is somehow absconded. He's left. I suspect he'll show up in the next few minutes. But we're going to interview a guy named John Doehring. I hope that's how I say his name. It's Doehring. He'll correct us.
I'm sure tell if it's John or not.
Yeah, this is John. And he, some folks may have already seen him hosting some NMRAX episodes.
Yes, he has.
And so he is running for some sort of board spot in the NMRA, and he's been the region president of the NER, I believe, for quite some time. So we thought we'd have him on and hear his views and get this podcast out in time to perhaps influence people to vote for him.
Excellent.
So could you just get him out of the green room there, please?
Sure. Hey, John.
I'm here.
Okay, come on out.
That was fast.
Put that fudgesicle down and get out of here.
How many fudgicles?
When did we get fudgicles in the green room?
Exactly. How many fudgicles have you had so far today?
2.
Just 2?
I brought my own. I had heard stories about what you guys offered in the
Wow,
the green room, so I brought my
the
own.
guy's got some smarts.
Yeah, brought his own fudgicles. So, am I pronouncing your name correctly? Is it John?
It's John. You got that just right.
Now, how do I pronounce the last name?
I pronounce it the same way you do, Doehring.
Doehring. Okay. So that's Doehring.
That's correct.
And what is that? What's the heritage of that? Do you know?
I've been told by people from Germany, where I'm from, that is most definitely the incorrect way to say it.
Oh.
However, that's how we've always said it.
Where you're from, your ancestors are from, you mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Because you live in Massachusetts.
I live in Massachusetts. I've lived here for about 20 years, in the Northeast for about 25 years, but I'm from Houston, Texas originally. That's my home. And for those of us who are from Texas, that sort of stays with you all along.
Bruce, I got a feeling this guy's going to answer questions before I get to ask him.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, it can be. So are you from Texas?
I'm from Texas. How did you know that?
Just a wild guess.
So, what would bring you to Massachusetts? Why would somebody leave the Lone Star State and move to Massachusetts, just outside of Boston? I believe you said.
Right. So, early on in my career, I worked in the oil business, and I moved from Houston to northern New Jersey. That was sort of the big move to escape, or to move out of the South. And once I got here, I really liked living here, and eventually I made a career and job change, and that's how I got up here to Massachusetts.
So what do you do? Are you still working? Are you still gainfully employed?
Well, that requires a nuanced answer. I own my own business. I'm a management consultant, so I'm somewhere between gainfully employed and highly underemployed. Depends on the day of the week and how the business is going. But yeah, that's what I do. I consult other professionals. My clients are people like architects and professional engineers and scientists and others, and I help them with a variety of different things that have to do with running their businesses better.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I run my own business, have for going on 40 years.
I understand that. It's a
long story.
Yeah.
I've never been a big fan of consultants, so I don't think this is going to go very well.
Probably not.
So that's pretty interesting. So how long have you been self-employed?
I've had this business since 2009, so 11 or 12 years, and I've done the similar kind of work for another 7 or 8 years, working for companies in the markets that I serve. So altogether, about 15 years I've been doing this.
All right. Try not to back away from your microphone too much, because it sounds great when you're beside it, but not so much when you move back a couple of inches.
Okay.
There you go. You should be 1 7/8 inches away from. Do you have a scale ruler? How many feet would that be an HO scale, Bruce? Any idea?
Be pushing to 1 to 7 to be about 13 or so.
Okay. So if you could be an HO scale, if you could be 13 scale feet away from your microphone, that'd be perfect.
I'll work on that.
Yeah. So, all right, John. So give us a brief history, a brief insight into your modeling, your interest in model railroading.
Sure. Yeah. Well, similar to like a lot of folks in sort of my age cohort would describe it, I was interested and fascinated with trains as a really young kid, growing up in the Texas Gulf Coast. I saw Southern Pacific and Cotton Belt and Katy freights all around. The petrochemicals industry is really big there, the agricultural industry. So I might have been 5 or 6 years old. I was kind of in love with trains. I met a fellow, I was thinking about this just the other day. I met a guy when I was 12. He was an adult and he was a model railroader. And I didn't know that was a thing. Then I was interested in trains, but I didn't know that adults were into it and that they were serious. And when I met this guy who was probably in his 20s or 30s himself, he told me and my buddy that there was such a thing as the NMRA, that they were There was this thing called a master model railroader. I had no idea what that meant, but even at 12 years old, I thought, oh, that's something I want to do. And so I was really sort of enthralled with the whole thing, but as happened to lots of folks, I got involved in school, going to college, getting married, having children, building a career, all those kind of things, and then that was sort of like I was asleep for 40 years. The only thing I have to show for 40 years there is a big, huge stack of magazines. So when I was about 10 years ago, I started realizing I better do something different, or this will just be a dream that doesn't ever turn into anything. And so I started looking around, going to train shows, and that led me to joining first in track. I'm an in-scaler. I'm sure that will endanger some more additional questions here. I'm an in-scaler, so I belong to in-track, and then the NMRA, and that kind of led in a really unpredicted way to being quite involved in the NMRA here for the last several years.
So what drew you to the NMRA?
Well, I love telling that story. What I always say to people is I joined these organizations, but not because I wanted more friends. I didn't think I needed any more friends. I'm kind of a shy sort of guy, and I was perfectly happy kind of being on my own in this hobby, but I didn't know how to do anything. And so what I thought I was doing is joining organizations for the how-to, and to kind of get behind the ropes of those modular layouts and learn from people. And of course, I did. All that happened. I learned a lot and continue to learn a lot from people who've done it before. That's certainly part of the value of being associated with other people. But I was wrong about the friendship piece. It turned out that it really is a social hobby, and that the real value comes through meeting people, hanging out with people, building a tribe. I used to be able to go to a train show and I could, sort of wander around all by myself all day. And now I go to a train show and it's like being at the club, and all you do is go from one conversation to the next. And so the more I've gotten into it, the more that's been even more important. And So
how did you end up as the president of the Northeast region?
Yeah, well, you make mistakes, rookie mistakes along the way. What happened was I was pretty modestly involved early on. I went to the monthly division meets. I volunteered here and there to sit at the membership table or to do a couple of other things. And then,
do you know a guy named Bruce Kelly? You might know him simply as you might know him as the modeler, simply known as Kelly. And he claimed the same thing, that he was quite happy being a lone wolf and was shy and didn't talk to people. And he runs pretty much every model railroad club within 102 miles of Medford, Oregon, and runs everything at the Medford Railroad Park. He's the president of the HO Scale Rogue Valley Model Railroaders, and I guess he got voted out of that. There was some sort of power struggle happened there. Joe D'Amato let him down. And he's the vice president of the live steamers, and he's the safety director for the live steamers, and he's the head landscaper for the park, and he's the chairman of the train show, and he's on the board of directors for the park. He's the chairman of the board. Anytime you talk to him, he'll burst out in New York. But he also claimed the same thing, that he wasn't really, a social person, right. And yet he ends up being in charge of everything. And I'm wondering what's your guys' gig? This thing where you say you're not social, but you're the president of the region.
Yeah, well, for me, I just kind of stumbled one step at a time. The first job I got that was of any significance, I was the newsletter editor for the Northeastern region for 4 years. And that's a great job to take if you want to get involved, because you just naturally get to meet a lot of people. You have to reach out and connect with a lot of people. And that gave me the kind of the courage to run for the board of directors. Now, I made the mistake of I ran for the board of directors at the region level and the division level at the same time, thinking that I had a less than 50-50 shot of getting either one of them, and I ended up getting both of them. But here's what happened. Right before the election for the board, the nominating chair said, "Hey, I'm going to move you over from a director position, an area director position, to vice president. Don't worry about it. There's no significant difference in the roles. You'll still be on the board." I said, "Fine." In retrospect, there is a significant difference. If you're the vice president, then you have one additional potential role, and that is to become the president if the president steps down, which is exactly what happened. So I had been the vice president of the region for a year or so, and then the president, then Scooter Yost, had to step down for personal reasons, and suddenly there it was. And that was about 5 years ago.
So you were the newsletter editor for 4 years.
Right.
What are you drinking?
Coffee.
Are we interrupting your dinner or something?
Like the guy is just all over. He brings his own fudgesicles.
Yeah.
He's bringing his own beverages, and he didn't bring enough to share.
I know.
So I told you I brought you one, but I can't get it through custom.
And then he's like, "Oh, I've not been in the hobby but 10 years, but I'm just adding it up in my head." And he must have stepped out of the car into the first train show and said, "I'll be a newsletter editor," because it's not adding up. You were a newsletter editor for 4 years. You were vice president for a year and a half. You've been the president for 5 years. So that's 10 and a half years right there.
That's what it is, yeah.
And so
I started getting interested in 2008 or 9, and almost right away there were these opportunities. And everybody who's involved in these associations knows that this is the way it is. You raise your hand. This is what I'm sure would happen to Bruce Kelly too, right? Once you raise your hand, you're kind of
we don't know.
You get sucked into the vortex, is what you're trying to say.
We don't know.
And that's what happened to me back in the 90s. I got sucked into the vortex.
Exactly.
We don't know what happened to Bruce Kelly. That's another.
Well, Kelly's in one of those states where they allow certain things to be smoked. So
yeah, Kelly's a whole different problem altogether. We're hoping that when Gordy becomes president, he'll look after that problem.
He's got some guys he knows.
Yeah, we're hoping Gordy brings some guys. And Gordy was supposed to be in on this podcast too, and he never showed up.
I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. I've been here all this time.
Where were you? Behind the curtain?
That couch. I mean, yeah. It's kind of getting. It's a bit sticky, to be perfectly honest. Lionel. I think we need to clean it.
He got stuck. Yeah, the sticky couch.
He got stuck in the McGurk.
So do you know this guy, John Doehring? He first off, he brought fudgesicles, but only for himself. Every time he takes a breath, he's slurping coffee. And now he tells us now apparently he's running for president of the NMRA or something.
Oh, excellent! That's exactly why he's practicing with his coffee for that job.
No, not president.
Oh, what are you running for?
Eastern Director.
Eastern
District Director of this.
Oh, okay. And do you know Gordy at all?
I do. Yeah, Gordy and I met maybe 3 years ago or so at Springfield. We host as the kind of one of the host regions. It's in our backyard, so we get a bunch of division superintendents together for dinner, and Gordy and Christina both came, and I've been pestering him about a lot of things ever since, and he's been helping me and our region out a lot this year. We did a NERX and NMRAX type virtual convention, so Gordy and I have seen a lot of each other here in the last.
So what did you say? The NER hosts some sort of dinner?
Yeah, one of the nights before Springfield, we just have an informal gathering of the superintendents and either have I think we've had dinners at restaurants, we've had them catered at hotels, and we just kind of have a bull session and share ideas. And
that sounds like a lot of fun. And you invited Gordy, did you?
We did. We had a premonition that he was going to be somebody important someday, and that we should, suck up to him early and often. So,
do you think we should go on with this, Bruce?
We started, might as well finish up. We're not quitters.
Well, apparently we weren't invited, Bruce.
Yeah, well,
I know where you were.
It's like
I know where you guys were. Let's just set the record straight.
Some guys go to the steaming pile, and
that's true.
So there you go.
That's true. We've yet to be invited to Chris Adams' private dinner either. So
I bet you John goes to cricket.
I bet you John does. Yeah. Do you go to the Steaming Pile there in Amherst for the Saturday night dinner?
I don't. It sounds like I'm missing something.
Oh yeah. Well, you should come to the AML dinner next year.
I would love to.
That being 2022.
2020. Yeah, 2022. Yeah.
I wish Springfield lasted 4 or 5 extra days. There's plenty to do.
Yeah, there is plenty to do. There's always lots to do. So what made you think 3 years ago that Gordy was somebody you needed to talk to? Because I was trying to get rid of him. Like he was following me around. I kept saying, "Don't bug me, kid."
I've Gordy's a doer, so that was attractive right from the get-go. Him and Christina were taking the reins of social media early on, and most of the rest of us didn't have any idea whatsoever how to make any of that work, and so we wanted to make sure that we could use their talents as much as possible. So yeah.
now you're running for regional director. So let's get down to brass tacks, because I'm probably gonna. When should I broadcast this, Gordy? By I was thinking, how about January the 26th? Would that be okay?
Probably the week before if we can, but that's okay.
The 25th, I was thinking. I think.
When is the timetable, Gordy?
Do you have it in front of you, Gordy? Because I got it right here.
Carry on.
Okay. Everybody can vote for president and vice president, and some members will get director, and all members be voting for a bylaw. Depending where you are, you're going to get a ballot by email or mail. They can arrive somewhere between January 15th and into February, and the deadline for getting things back electronically or via mail is postmarked no later than March 1st by mail, or if you get an electronic ballot, it sets you through and gets you all secure. So ballots you should start seeing around January 15th. And if you don't, then get a hold of somebody at the NMRA and find out where your ballot is. So if you have a valid email, you get an email or an electronic ballot. Otherwise, you'll get a paper ballot.
So if today is Monday, January the 25th, that means you have 5 weeks from today to get your vote in. Would I be correct on that assumption? March 1st, 5 weeks?
Yeah, that'd be right.
All right. So you got 5 weeks from today to get your vote in. So what's your platform there, John? What is it you want to do? Are you and Gordy on the same page? Are you guys going to be knocking heads? Where are we at there?
Yeah. No, I think we're directionally on the same page. I think I love the NMRA. I really am very proud to be a part of the association. I have all of my close friends in the hobby I've met in the last decade or so through just about all of them through the association. And yet, I can see the need for lots of change. It's none of it's perfect, and some of it's quite a long way from that. And I think maybe more importantly, because there's always challenges in organizations, that there's just so much potential here. And there's so much we can do. I'm sort of an impatient person. I guess I'm really bolstered by the opportunity to work with Gordy and other people like that. There's some people on the board I know and know well that I really think a lot of as well. We're going to have a big turnover because a lot of people aren't running for re-election. And I just think there's a super lot of opportunity there, and the organization should be a lot bigger, should be a lot more people involved. The people who are members, I think, could be a lot more engaged in things, and we should focus on the stuff that matters and not so much on a lot of the petty stuff that is too distracting. So,
okay, as Eastern Director, Director Eastern Region, whatever. What is your job task, I guess, or job description as Eastern Director?
Yeah, good question. I think.
Hang on. Have some of our questions up to this point not been so good?
No. Another good question.
Yeah, there's two good questions.
Right. All of your questions have been just amazing.
Oh, okay.
So I think the the thing about a board of directors is that everybody who's on the board is tasked with representing the entire association. So it's not as though you're kind of like a House of Representatives sort of person where that, you're just looking at an individual constituency. But each one of the, as I understand it, each one of the regional district directors has a kind of a connection with the regions that fall under their umbrella as far as communication and sort of taking things, information up and pushing it back down and that sort of thing. But in general, I think all of the board members have a similar job to work together as a team for the benefit of the whole association. Gordy, you may know more about that than I do. Do I have that right? Or
yeah, that's exactly it. The board of directors sets the policy and strategy for the whole of the organisation, and the reason that it's set at the Eastern Director, for example, is from the constituency area is just to make sure that there's a balance on the board with people from across North America and globally, because we are such a global organisation.
So our jobs, once the board of directors is set, Gordy, our jobs, or John might not think this question's a good one. So, Gordy, are the jobs assigned? Are different tasks assigned to different directors, regardless of whether or not where they come from? Are different tasks assigned to different directors?
Yeah, so how it works is there are various committees of the board. There are also various projects and stuff. And one of the first things that the board does is the board members vote to elect the lead director, and then the lead director really acts as the person who then works with the board, but ensures that a director is assigned to various projects and committees to make sure that things are driving forward within the organisation, to make sure that those committees' voices are heard at board level, and to make sure that actions, projects are progressing in a way that the board thought they should do in terms of from a strategic and policy perspective. The board also is there to ratify appointments made by the president, certain important appointments such as the CFO and the secretary that are appointed by the president, but 2/3 majority of the board of directors has to vote on that. So it's interesting. There are certain things that officers, so that's the president, vice president, and secretary and treasurer can and can't do, and there are things that board members can and can't do, but that's to give a balance within the organisation to make sure that there's no fully truly executive power, although the president acts as a CEO would in any other corporation.
So, Bruce, I'm assuming that only people in the Northeast region, or what area of the country votes for the Eastern? What do you call yourself, John? The North,
right? Right, the Eastern District. There are 3 districts in the continental U.S.
Okay,
right? And East, Central, and West, I think. And so they're the regions that fall within each one of those, and I don't remember exactly, but there's 4 or 5 regions in the Eastern District, and so all of the members of the association that live within those boundaries will vote for Eastern Director, but none of those people will get to vote for Western Director.
Okay. So yeah. I have a question for you, John, that kind of pertains to the current board and the way things have been run in the NMRA for the last 10 or 15 years. And I think I need an honest answer on this one.
Okay.
Do you think the internet is made by the devil? Or is it, or could it be a viable? Could it be a very viable tool for the NMRA rather than something that the NMRA should be opposed to?
I can't imagine why anybody. I don't know if anybody is opposed to it. I get where you're coming from, but yeah, I think it's definitely a major opportunity for change.
Well, let's give an example. One that's near and dear to both Bruce's and mine. I think I don't speak for Bruce. I never speak for Bruce, but I bet you he'll probably agree with me on this one. How about online bulletins? So far, the NMRA has fought tooth and nail to avoid putting the not the bulletin, what's it called now?
The NMRA magazine.
NMRA magazine.
The NMRA magazine. They fought tooth and nail. They spent copious amounts of money to keep it off the internet. Are you in, because I thought that they thought that the internet was something made by the devil. So are you in favor of having people be able to access the newsletter online, or are you opposed to that?
I'm in favor of it, and I think it's an issue more than just the magazine. I wrote a letter to the board and all of the officers earlier this summer with the 4 or 5 bullet points of things I thought were really important that they consider, and one of them was this magazine. And here's my own opinion. I personally like reading paper magazines. I think that's probably as much a function of my age and kind of background. I recognize that a lot of people like reading the online magazine, and then there are other people, particularly outside the U.S., for whom the cost thing is so crazy that the online magazine is the only option that sort of makes sense. I don't see any justification for not doing it. And more than that, and what I wrote in my letter to the board, my own opinion is, I think this particular issue has become a meme, kind of like a metaphor. I think people are wound up about this, even if they're not likely to read the electronic version, because what it really stands for is, I think what you were getting at, what it really stands for is, are you guys with it? Are you with the technology? Are you willing to make change? Are you 21st century focused? And so, I mean, I think, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes there, other than we've had a similar situation on a much smaller scale at our local level, because the people that can get involved in creating even our region newsletter are really heavily invested in the status quo, and so they don't want to change. So I suspect that's the magazine is the baby of some people, and they just want to keep it the way they have it. But I don't see any justification for that. I think we need an electronic magazine, and we need it right now. Press a button, get a PDF, worry about whatever the next generation thing is that's a year or two out. Yeah. Long answer.
If I can, I've been on the board now for 9 weeks. I've already started a bonfire under this issue. I'm pushing that we have a motion to the board on this in the February board meeting. Certainly, it's not talking outside of school to say that there are a significant and growing number of board members who are of the opinion that this policy needs to change. We have a contract in place. There are other members of the organisation, more operational members potentially, who may be blocking that. Certainly, I've made it very clear that I feel that the renewal of that contract should be subject to the person who it's renewed with, i.e. the vendor or publisher, being able to, or being competent enough to select the output as the electronic version rather than Outlook as print version in Adobe Illustrator, which is literally a click of a button, and that this nonsense goes away. Certainly, I can promise you this: if I am elected president on the Friday, I would take up office on the Friday of the summer board meeting, which will probably be virtual to protect the aging members of the board from coronavirus. However, that will be when we launch. It won't be Apollo 1 because that burnt up on the launch pad, but we will launch a Saturn V rocket up the backside of putting a digital magazine in place. That's how big the rocket is. I'm going to put up people's backsides to get that done. If that isn't done in a year of me being president, committee chairs are going to be replaced. That's how serious I am. It's absolutely ridiculous that regions and divisions and model railroad and model railway clubs across the globe can provide a digital magazine, and we, a national organization, tens of thousands of members, multi-million-dollar corporation, are hamstrung by poor contractual decisions. And that's got to change. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think that Gordy's had some insight, I guess, looking into why people are where they are. The only thing I can say is that I think there is a pervasive kind of excuse across the association for what I call scarcity. Just like it's just easier to say no to things. It's easier to say that's not a bad idea, but who's going to do it? there can be a lot of inertia. And this is why I think NMRAX is such a neat little kind of story that of how a small group of people can make big change by just doing it, not asking for permission, just jumping in, making mistakes, changing as you go. And that's what I think we ought to do. And as Gordy's suggesting, I think, there's an obvious step one in there that's really just essentially providing a PDF version. And there's probably something that comes down the road later than that that's more like an MRH type magazine that's actually enhanced, clickable, and things like that. But I feel very much like there's just a huge constituency of people out there that are looking at this one issue and saying, as long as this doesn't change, I don't want to be a part of that organization. And that's too costly. That's too costly for all of us.
That's an excellent point. Excellent point. Okay, John. So, aside from the magazine, is there something that you see with the NMRA that you'd like changed, or do you just generally want to get involved and help, or do you have a couple of things that you're kind of excited about? Not necessarily that you want changed, but you want to improve, or ideas that you'd like to put out there and see if they get any traction. Is there anything that gets you excited about the future? What gets you excited about the future of the NMRA? I mean, everybody that's listened to the podcast knows that I'm excited about the future model railroading, because I don't think in the entire history of this hobby have we ever had the opportunity to make it grow like we do now. I mean, we were all clustered in our basements, and yes, we all had our local groups. And but now, I mean, I have so many friends around the world because of this. It's overwhelming, if nothing else. So, I mean, what are you excited about?
There's a lot of things. My list is probably too long, but just a couple that are really kind of near and dear to me. One is, as I mentioned earlier, we have 18,000 plus or minus members, and I think about half of them are kind of apathetic or agnostic. They're members, but they're not really engaged.
I was an agnostic for several years, but then I dropped out because I wasn't paying the dues.
Well, that would be, I mean, that's the next step if you're not really engaged with it, right?
What is agnostic? Somebody help me out here. Have you ever listened to this podcast?
Is that the wrong word?
Well, it's probably the right word. I just have no idea what you're talking about. Bruce, can you help me out here? He's on mute. He's going to come off mute any second now.
Like now.
So, okay, what is agnostic?
It kind of means you believe it, don't believe.
Okay, all right. All right, go for it.
I'm efforting it right now.
All right, go for it, John.
What I mean by that is they're just not very engaged.
Okay.
It's a take it or leave it thing. I kind of renew, but I don't get much out of it, and I'm just not very involved. So, in addition to the big issue of how do you get more people into the organization per se, new members, one of the things I'm really interested in is how do we make it more valuable to the members that are there. And one of the ways that this connects to another thing that I don't get why anybody would want to be in the NMRA. And this, I know that I'm going to get a bit of trouble for this. Why would you want to be in this association if you're not interested in the achievement program? To me, those things really go together. But there are lots of people in the organization that don't want to push too hard on the achievement program. But I look at that and I think, well, to me, that doesn't make any sense. That would be like joining the Boy Scouts, but saying I don't want to do the rank advancement or the merit badges or any of those things. To me, so one of the things I'd like to see is a whole lot more people involved in the achievement program, because it's more obvious that's kind of why you join in the first place, because everybody kind of joins in one way or another to learn from others, to build their skills, to try new things. And I think there's kind of an attitude in some that the achievement program is more like kind of like getting an Oscar, like a lifetime achievement award, right? You hide in your basement for 30 years and then you get this thing bestowed upon you. But I don't see it that way at all. To me, it's kind of the extra motivation and encouragement to try out new things and to go on this journey. And I've heard a number of people that you've interviewed on the podcast kind of describe it that way, right? That pushed them into kind of uncomfortable and new places, stick your neck out there, try to learn, I guess I'm going to have to figure out how to do this. And that, to me, that's so valuable. I don't understand why there aren't 10,000 people in the association. Half the people are more working on.
I agree with what you're saying. Hopefully we'll see a change, because I think there's the misconception out there right now. You're involved in the AP, you're in the E-list, and you're going to be better than everybody else, blah, 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 which is farthest from it, because anybody I met through the AP has been helpful and willing to help, and that's the whole thing. And the misconception is you're competing, but no, you're competing against yourself to make yourself a better modeler. And if you go through the achievement program, you will pick up skills that will no doubt make you a better modeler, which will help you, in my opinion, enjoy the hobby more, because you've improved the skills. It's like if you enjoy woodworking, you're going to push yourself to learn new techniques so you can make more difficult, complex things and get enjoyment out of that. It's not a competition against others. It's a competition against yourself to improve yourself. And I think that's one of the things you got to try to get over, is that no, it's not a bunch of elitists running around saying they're better than everybody else. Because anyone I met through the AP, and I've met several master model railroaders, they've all been some of the greatest people out there. And they're willing to help you learn and improve yourself if you just want to take the time and do it.
So, yeah, I agree, Bruce. And not only that, but only a quarter or a third of the whole pathway to master model railroad even has to involve, judging and high level of building. There's a whole bunch of that program that's just kind of doing things, right? So, for instance, the first certificate I received was for volunteering, and I didn't do anything earth-shattering through that, but because of the motivation of wanting to be in the program and get this certificate, I had to get out of my little shy comfort zone and say, okay, I'll volunteer for this, or I'll join this committee. I raise my hand to be the newsletter editor. I'll try to run for the board, and I didn't change the world through any of those things, but it changed me a lot, because again, I've met, 200 people through going on that journey. And so I would suggest everybody ought to go for the volunteer.
Oh, sure. For sure.
Right.
And that's why we got the 4 categories in the program as well. But, another thing to consider too, when the AP was set up, it was basically set around, if you can build a 4x8 layout and build, 12 structures, 8 pieces of rolling stock, your track work and stuff like that, and do it within the guidelines, and that it will grade reasonably well on the judging schedule or scoring schedule, whatever you want to call it, then you can do it. It's you don't have to have a basement size layout to do it. You look at the requirements. It's designed around a HO 4x8 layout,
right?
And if you take your time and go through the AP requirements and look at it, then you can be an MMR, because you've got your service to the hobby, you've got the electrical and civil stuff, and you've got your cars and structures and authors. So there's the 4 categories there that if you take your time, you can easily get the certificates you need.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But just because you don't want to do the achievement program isn't a reason either not to be a member of the NMRA. You don't have to support or contribute to the aims and objectives of this organization only solely by doing the AP program. And that's the great thing about the organization, because there's very few people, I think, and unfortunately very few people at senior level who on a regular basis remind themselves of what we're here for, which is to promote and foster and encourage people to improve their enjoyment of the hobby, either through learning new skills, trying new things. Certainly, I take part in the achievement program. I've got 5 certificates. I've done things through the achievement program. I've pushed myself to do them as part of the achievement program that I would never have ordinarily done myself. But there are huge aspects of the hobby not covered by the achievement program, which and especially, I hate to say this, but especially in more modern things. However, 3D printing and stuff is covered, and it's just another tool. But there are tons of other things that the NMRA does that don't quite fit at the moment within the current achievement program stuff. There's tons of new stuff coming along all the time. You don't have to be actively doing the achievement program, but you will get more from the organization if you take part in more stuff. It's just like anything else.
Right.
Yeah, I would fall more in Gordy's camp because I've been a member of the NMRA, I think, since I was like 12 or something. And I've really never had any interest in doing the achievement program, mostly because I don't like school and I don't like tests and I don't like being judged and blah, 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 blah. And I enjoy the being part of the NMRA for the conventions. And I always thought of it as, well, this is my hobby. So I want to belong to the national organization. And I think it does offer, there is a lot to offer other than the achievement program. I think, if it was up to me, and then we'll get off this subject, but if it was up to me, I think there'd be like a semi-pro version of the achievement program where there were certificates to be had, and at the end you got some sort of that was not as difficult as the achievement program.
Yeah.
Because
I don't disagree with that at all. In fact, I absolutely get that. Here's my thought though. The way I see the associate, when we did a survey in 2015 inside the Northeastern region where we have 1,600 members, and about 25% of members were participating in the achievement program. And of those people, about 80% of those had either 0 or 1 certificate. So they were kind of at the beginning of that journey. So I would never say, you have to be in the achievement program in order to be in the NMRA. I may have said that too strongly originally, but I do believe we have a responsibility to engage the members in a way where it's safer for some of them to move into whatever, right? I think there's just too many people kind of sitting around the edges, not getting in. They're members and they get a magazine maybe, but they don't go to division meetings. They don't think they would ever want to try a convention, and maybe they don't want to do the achievement program. And all I'm saying is, in my experience, I didn't want to do any of those things either. It took somebody investing in me and saying, yeah, you do. Come try this out. Stick your neck out a little bit. I'll help you. And then you get there and you go, of course, I want to be a part of some of these other things. So that's kind of what I'm getting at, which maybe at the end of the day, in an optimal world, maybe instead of 25% of the people participating, it would be 30 or 50.
Or you just want to try to improve it. I don't disagree with that. I mean, it's kind of like this podcast. I mean, people start to listen to the podcast and I mean, absolutely, we're goofy and we have a lot of fun, but there's stuff to be had. And if if all you have to do to enjoy the podcast is listen to it. And then you're drawn in because it's welcoming. We just want people to enjoy themselves listening to it. And that's really what that's where you guys are headed. Now, you talked about a survey. Like, have you guys have you guys had any discussions about how you can listen? Like, your ideas about the achievement program are very good, John, but do you guys have any ideas or thoughts about how you can listen to what the members want? And
well, absolutely, we do, and it's not just members. I've said this before. I'll say it again. It's model railroaders we need to listen to. We have this very insular thing within our organisation that we say we only listen to members, and then in my experience, we don't actually listen to them. And anyone who disagrees with the perceived right path is ignored or just told no for a multitude of reasons of no, and sometimes they're valid and most of the time they're not. And we need to we need to resolve that. However, we also need to listen to model railroaders, because if we accept that all model railroaders can benefit from an organization that promotes their hobby, why would they not be part of it? And we need to understand the reasons why not. We need to understand what unmet need there is and what their reasons are, whether that's financial or whether that's something that we're not giving them. And we need to understand that. If we don't understand that, we can't move the organization forward. And that's why me and John firmly believe in doing surveys. John's done surveys before in his own region, but me and John have just recently worked together with the NMRAX team to do a survey to solicit feedback from members and non-members on what was been delivered in 2020 from NMRAX, because there are people at senior level in the NMRA questioning what benefits have been from the program, which is correct and it's the right thing to do. But I don't want us to come to conclusions on that based on assumptions that we make in a dark room. So John's been instrumental in that, and John does this kind of stuff for a living. So we should let John talk a bit more. I'll shut up. But that's the great thing that people like John can bring to the board. We have enough messed up lawyers in the board of directors, to sink a battleship. What we really, really need is people with corporate experience. And that's what John does for a living. It's great. I'm not going to give a sales pitch for John here, but John does do this for a living, and knows what he's doing, and is able to support the organization as I do. I know I do this for a living. I know what I'm doing, and customer understanding and knowing your customer is vital to any business that succeeds. The businesses that fail are the ones that don't know their customer. And there's a Simpsons sketch on this where Homer meets his long lost brother and goes and designs a car, but the only person that they listen to is Homer. And it's great that they listen to somebody other than themselves, but what they were doing is market research and understanding and talking to people that were buying their cars and people that weren't buying their cars. And Homer brings down his brother's business, and that's very similar to anything in life. If you hear nothing, see nothing, and say nothing, we know what the outcome is. But anyway, John, I mean, you set this survey up, and you've done them in the NER before. So,
yeah, we just put together one. We did as I mentioned, we did a survey of membership. It's been about 5 years ago now in our region. And then when Gordy and his team helped with our regional convention, which was just in December, NERX, we called it. Then we did a survey afterwards of that. How'd you like it? What'd you like? What could we do better? You want to see more of these? And then that led to, let's do a similar kind of survey for the whole NMRAX kind of platform. And we've just got that together, and it's just about to go out now. So that will help. That's a piece of the answer to your question. I think another thing I would add to it is there is a position on the NMRA national board called the RAC director, the Region Advisory Council. So there's a board member whose job it is to kind of coordinate and communicate back and forth with the region. And a first step of getting to the members is that very first step. There's actually a corporate, the region is actually part of the same kind of corporate body as the national organization, whereas the divisions are a step farther away. And to be honest, that hasn't worked very well over the years that I've been a region president, other than occasionally soliciting a report to be rolled up to the board. There hasn't been very much communication. And that, if you think about it, that doesn't make any sense at all. The region presidents, of which there are 18 or 19 around the world, are the first line of connecting what's happening across the global organization to the membership. And that's been weak. So that has been there's a new RAC director now, and I've seen some nice improvements in the first couple of months there. So I'm hopeful that's another sort of channel that will open up communications. And there's one other thing I would add, if I could. I think for too long, the NMRA has, and they're not unique in this challenge, but too long, I think we've paid too much attention to a few loud voices that don't represent the whole membership, whether those are major complainers or not. I think we need to also have the courage to say this association's not for everyone, and if you don't want to be here, then you don't have to.
There you go. Any examples of that? You don't have to say people's names, but you could say
not people's names. I think we were talking about the AP program earlier and how some people have that impression that there's something, the judges are elitist or any of that kind of thing. Bruce was talking about that. I think we need to say, stop. That's not right. Tell me how'd you get to that position? and do some kind of educating, and then say, look, I appreciate it. If that's how you want to feel, that's fine, but that's just not who we are. And kind of, if you will, defend what we want and hold on to that. That's what culture building is about, right? Defending what you care about and not letting people who are on the out. There's always going to be people who disagree. And I just think, it's like this on all forms of communication today.
Well, yeah, but okay. Let's ask you a pointed question then.
Okay.
What would you say to people that say the AP program is kind of an elitist program? Because in fact, as you said, I think there's less than 700 master model railroaders in the world in the history of the NMRA, which is coming up to 100 years. I think the NMRA started in the 30s, did it not? 1930s?
1935.
Yeah, Milwaukee, 1935.
Right. So it's 85 years old, soon to be 100 years old, and there's only 600 and some odd master model railroaders, which I don't. So. What would you say to people to encourage them, to tell them that it's not an elitist thing? Because that seems very elitist to me. It seems like it's, if you've only got 600, say for argument's sake, 650 MMRs in an 85-year history of the organization, that sounds like it's really, really, really hard to become an MMR. So how would you answer that?
I agree with you, and I don't know that I don't know the history enough to really know that I can defend that. I don't know why that is. I've often wondered that myself. But when you read the requirements in the documents, and when you talk to AP chairman around, my experience has been very much the way Bruce characterized it earlier. People are willing to help. The thing was not designed as this kind of lifetime achievement award. You have to have a basement empire that looks like, John Allen or something. It is hard. I think it's unapologetically supposed to be challenging and difficult. But I think the elitism part comes from a place of, I don't really know how to say that. Kind of insecurity or something. I know there's some truth to that. I mean, look, here, part of the thing we always have to say is we're just a bunch of people, right? A bunch of volunteers. There are AP judges that are wrong, right? That are nasty, that are cranky old men. We're not a perfect organization at all.
Hold on. Ralph is one of the judges.
Hang on. Let's us not forget what happened.
Time out. That's going to bite me in the ass. Come on. Let's all agree that eventually.
That's unfair. It's unfair. Let's not forget what happened to me the first time as a first-time attender at a regional convention, where taking my stuff to be assessed, and it wasn't assessed to the correct paperwork, and it was an absolute mess. And it isn't as good as it could be. It's getting better. There's a group of people involved who want to make it better. The other thing as well, there's only 600 people. Correct. I think it's nearly 700 now, Lionel. And the thing is, though, it's not. The organization's been around for 85 years. The AP program has not. And so back in the 90s, to give you an idea of the scale of this, in 1995 we minted MMR 240, because that was the first MMR in the British region. Mr. Dave Gunn, who's now in John's region and has returned home to Canada and lives in the Eastern Canada division, and Mr. Gunn is also his divisional AP chair. And the achievement program, whilst we say there's only been so many people that are masters, so only so many people that have completed it, equally in the scouting world, there are only so many people, considering of a percentage of people that join Boy Scouts, who become Eagle Scouts or Queen Scouts outside of America. Right. And if it was a participation award, or if everybody was just turning up and getting this, like John says, a lifetime achievement award, then you can't really call it a master's program. It's like when you've mastered your craft, you've reached a certain level. Now, there are many, many people in the organization who I feel are master model railroaders, but just haven't engaged in that program or haven't done the paperwork. Sure. And we should be potentially not watering the program down. I can already feel people's eyes burning to the back of my neck as I say this, but we could modernize the way that the evidence and documentation is gathered. And I think in 2020, with virtual assessment of people's models and interaction with people online for AP, which we've seen a huge ramp up. So we've gone from 1995, we were at MMR 240. Now, when I first met you, Lionel, in Orlando in 2017, I think we just minted about MMR 500. Just about maybe in the previous 12 months. And I know for a fact that we're in the 670s now. Mm-hmm. So we've seen a huge surge, and certainly in this month, the MMRs that have been minted, I think in this December e-bulletin, it was 8 people, I think, who've become MMRs, and that's obviously because there's been more modeling activities. People have not been able to enjoy other hobbies that they have, and we have to remember that people have other hobbies. So it's not that someone, if you literally sit in your basement for 2 or 3 years, and or even less than that, if you just as if you're retired and you do this full time as a 40-hour-a-week job, you can get an MMR in under a year, because as Bruce says, it's about building a 4x8 layout. But it's more than that. It's about being engaged with the hobby. Right. And engage with the organization. So it kind of does take a little bit longer.
Well, which is why they have the category service to the hobby in there. And
yeah, exactly.
According to the latest e-bulletin, we're at MMR 671. This was the one that just came out, so there may be more since then, but 671 is where we're at.
I think I heard 2 really good points. I think if I can summarize, John, what it is you're trying to say is you're very excited about the AP program. And while it may be the way it is right now, you want to figure out how to make it more accessible to more people and make it a fun event as much as you possibly can. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that.
Absolutely.
And what I loved what you just said there, Gordy. Part of the reason, one of the things that you can utilize to make the AP program better is doing things virtually. I mean,
totally. I mean, it's a whole new aspect to the hobby, and we're only just really embracing it, unfortunately. But that we're not alone in that. I mean, most hobby and craft organizations have only really embraced digital in the last 5 years, because the availability of the internet bandwidth, for example, has only been really available in the last 5 years in most people that live outside of major conurbations and major cities. And it's a huge opportunity for us, and it needs to have people at the top level of an organization and operationally. So, because don't forget, it's not just the board of directors direct. They're not there in post to do all the doing. There are hundreds of volunteers in the NMRA at the grassroots level and at national level where the boots hit the ground, and it's about as an organization, making sure that we have the right people involved at making the strategic and operational decisions at senior level, empowered with the right technologies to fully embrace what does the organization look like in 5 years' time with the virtual stuff. I know for a fact, because it was messaged to me, and I'm not talking out of school, because I can tell you now as a board direct member, I am yet to see this document, but there is a new long-range plan being developed by the NMRA. And when we launched NMRAX back in April, one of the people who'd been involved in that committee sent me an email and said, wow, can I speak to you urgently? We haven't even considered anything like this in the long-term plan for the NMRA. So that tells me that we've not got necessarily the people at the top level at the moment that fully understand the opportunities that present themselves to us for using digital. And some people are scared of it because they don't understand it. Most of our members are retired, and some of them, quite a lot of them, retired before this kind of technology was mainstream. They were still doing face-to-face meetings 2 years ago, was probably in most business and most industries was the majority way that people conducted things. Now everything's conducted on Zoom and WebEx. And so people that are retiring in 10 years' time, or people who are suddenly, their life is enabling them to take more active participation in their hobbies, are going to be more au fait with that technology. And so then there becomes an expectation that we're up to that level, so we have to get there, but we're getting there really quickly, and that's really encouraging. It's really encouraging. You get 3 regions of the NMRA, 3 out of 18 held a virtual convention for the first time last year, and another one contacted me this morning. So the change is there. I know that British region, very well because obviously it's my home region and I'm involved in it. But we in the British region have our bi-weekly brew and natter meetings where we do support people on the AP program in that meeting at the moment. We have 2 or 3 people who are going through the final stages of certain certificates in their AP program, asking for advice to try to get those things done because they want it done before lockdown comes out, because then they have to go and mow the lawn again. Whereas when they're trapped in the houses, of course, we can't do that. So there's that, but there's also now it's on my radar that I need to set up a separate group for AP, an AP group for people in the region to meet and discuss about working together on the AP, and that's bringing people out who we've never seen at a division meeting. That's engaging with people who we've not been engaging with, and and we've also flipped a new member who has literally joined the organisation in the end of November and has decided to take part in participate in the part of the achievement program because they've gone to these meetings and it's been being discussed and it's been recommended different things that you can do and how it can force you. And he said exactly what I said earlier, which was it's forcing me to try something outside of my comfort zone. I might decide, you know what, I don't like it, or it's doing me head in, and I need to stop it for a few months and pick it up again. But that's the point of the program. And like there's 700 people who have been involved in the AP program, or nearly 700 people with master model railroaders. Fantastic, right? But there are thousands, probably tens of thousands of people that have done something in the achievement program, or been involved in it in some way, or taken a model to a contest, or gone away and tried something new because someone in the NMRA encouraged them to do it. And that's what the organization's all about. That's the grassroots of the organization. That's what makes it special.
I think I have 3 AP certificates. I only got 2. Bruce lost one of mine, my operations one. But other,
no. You got your chief dispatcher.
Where is it?
I don't know. I gave it to you.
Are you sure?
Absolutely positive, because I had to fight with our local regional AP person to get him to deliver them.
Well,
yeah.
The question is who dispatched that certificate, because I think we need to investigate whether they've got a dispatching certificate.
Well, this would have been back in 2003, so it's long water under the bridge, and the person involved is no longer on this planet. So, but I had to fight because he wanted to present them at the Toronto Convention, and I said,
That's right.
I don't know if everybody's going to the convention, or if anybody's going, or we'll all be there the same day. Just send me them, and I'll make sure they get them. I said, just send it to me. So finally got nasty and got the AP chair involved and said, listen, send it to me. I'll give you a courier number. How difficult is this? So he sent them to me, and I distributed it to the people who got it. So,
the H headquarters queue in Soddy Daisy, Tennessee, have a number of all certificates issued by every region.
Yep.
And if you contact headquarters queue with your membership number, they will issue you with a replacement certificate of any AP certificate that has been misplaced or damaged.
Is it hanging on your wall?
It'll be hanging in the bathroom like all these other special certificates.
I was away from my microphone because I thought I saw it, but no. I got one last question for both you guys, but first, you can hear the excitement in Gordy's voice. I actually believe that Gordy-Robinson could be one of the best things that happened to the NMRA in the last 50 years. And we've had a lot of great people involved in the NMRA. And Gordy, I got to tell you, buddy, your enthusiasm is exactly what this organization needs at this moment. And I sure hope everybody votes for you, because we're not going to be disappointed if you're the president. I can tell you that. That's my own. I've had many, many dealings with this young man. And, sometimes when we're at Hooters or some other place and you're monopolizing the conversation, I feel kind of like, well, I want to talk. But other than that, the thing of it is, you're an incredibly passionate young man, and you also have got a lot of integrity. People needs to know that Gordy is a man of integrity, and he's going to he'll do the NMRA a great service. So, having said that, though, you guys touched on something that I think is important, and then I got one last comment. There is a great disconnect between the board of directors and this group of gentlemen that travel around the country getting free trips and the grassroots level of the NMRA. Like the grassroots level of the NMRA is what keeps this organization going. So how do you guys plan on closing that gap? John, you go first.
Well, the way I would answer that is, the way I see this is the NMRA is like a franchise organization. Don't let the lawyers get all wound up about that, just kind of conceptually. And so you're right. The local retail shop is kind of where it happens. But in a good franchise, what the organization does is it provides the structure and the training and the support and the leadership so that people down at the local level can just do the work every day. It's one thing to run a restaurant and take care of the customers, and it's another thing to have to figure out how to build the restaurant or do your own marketing or figure out what kind of equipment to buy. And part of the problem that we have, I think, in the association is that there's too many volunteers at the local level that are just dumped a mess in their hand, and they have to figure out a whole bunch of stuff on their own, notwithstanding that there are 150 divisions, so there's 75 other people that had to go through that exact same path. And I just think that's a poor way to run the railroad. What the National Association can do is provide a lot more, kind of structure and how-to around training and developing the leaders and providing them with support. For instance, it's just a real kind of tangible example. We all went through this big change this year, but virtually everybody at either a division or a region level had to figure out, how do you do a Zoom call? How do I get a Zoom account? How do we promote that? And everybody's kind of all over the board as to whether or not they were able to do that. We have some business model issues. We have a lot of small divisions that don't have the financial stability to actually do what you need to do today. You can easily spend $1,000 a year on technology if you have a website and a Zoom account and a constant contact account. So that's just one example I think of where the national organization could really help by figuring out what are the really common problems and how can we provide a solution. What happens way too often, and I think reinforces the disconnect, and I address this in the letter that I wrote to the board, is, and I don't know exactly why it is, but a lot of times it seems like the national organization looks into these issues, gets the input, and then somehow concludes that what's going on is that everybody else is screwing up. All the people down at the local level are making mistakes and screwing up. And so in my view, and I say this all the time in my business, if you have one person in your organization that's messing up, that's a personnel issue. But if you have 10 people in your organization making the same doing the same thing, then that's a firm issue. That's an organization problem. And so I think there's a lot of things, I'm sure Gordy's more in tune to some of those, that can just make the franchise work better. Now, part of the problem is there is a whole lot of that's a two-way street, so if you're going to run a more effective organization, that it also means that you're going to have to tell some people out there, you can't do that thing anymore. You can't be a renegade on this issue or that issue. And that's where we've had trouble in the past. I think there are still, it goes back into the history of how the association went through what used to be a really decentralized, kind of independent and autonomous platform to something that was more vertically integrated. And there's still a lot of pockets of people around the country that, if you will, they kind of don't want, they're divisions of the NMRA, but they don't want to be. And I'm not exactly sure how we're going to deal with all of that, but that needs to be dealt with, I think. And,
I got an example of that. Next week's episode is Mike Hawk, who is a fellow that lives in Erie, Pennsylvania, and him and his buddies have resurrected their local division. It had died, and they resurrected it. And what would you do to make the board more accessible, say to guys in a division that are trying to get it going? Because I think that's a lot of the problem. They feel like they're out there floating on their own.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually have a new division in my region that was transferred from another region to ours. So a small group of people very similar to that. We have a new division that we created kind of out of a dormancy in Eastern Canada in the Atlantic provinces. And we have another group of people in Western New York that have their own kind of division, very much like what you're suggesting. And they're trying to figure out whether they should join either our region or the one on the other side of them. So this is not uncommon at all. And I think, what I've seen play out is just right away, it's hard to do everything. There's so much friction. So a new division superintendent, first thing he or she is going to want is a list of my members. Well, that can be a rat hole that takes forever to figure out. And there's a whole bunch of details around that, but these things are just too hard. Then that person's going to have to turn around and say, okay, how do we get a website going? How do I connect with my members? And then what are we going to do? And I think what we've tried to do in the Northeastern region is bring those division presidents, superintendents together regularly, connect them together, because when they get together, they say, oh, I know how to do that. Call me and I'll help you. Right. We don't have enough staff, money, or organizational infrastructure to sort of solve all the problems in the national and push them all down. Right. What we have to do is give your fella there who's trying to get that division up and running some support and connect him with other people that know how to do things. And I think I could see a kind of a new division kit. Here's your kit, right? It solves 60 or 70% of the challenges you're going to have. And then here's 3 more people you can talk to than your peer group, and that sort of thing. That's what it's an incremental process, Yeah. So I think it's just not right to you've got somebody there, they're super enthusiastic. And if we're not careful, what we're going to do is really wear that guy out before he even gets going, right?
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah. What do you think? What do you think, Gordy? Like, what are your plans to fix the disconnect?
So John there has just echoed most of the points I've previously made. I'm just going to take it a bit further, though. I think summing it up, we absolutely have to give people all levels of the organization the tools, the training, and the empowerment to make a difference. And we need to do that by understanding that we're a business. None of the things that John's just mentioned are what I see as being discussed at the board level. However, it's what I feel is most important, and it's all boils down to what I see happening or have seen happening, not seeing happening on the board right now necessarily, but have seen happening, is that a policy decision will be made, and there's no whether that's made from a legal perspective. It's particularly bad if it's made from a legal perspective, to be honest, but like the youth policy. However, the policy is made and there is no discussion, consideration, or anything of how the heck that's going to get implemented. There's very little guidance. It's generally just issued to see what people think. When I say people, I mean just regional presidents. They get their say, and then it happens anyway, and then they've got to try and figure it out. I saw what was going on this year. Before I was on the board, I was just Gordy, and I still am just Gordy, and I jumped on it and I helped a number of divisions and special interest groups. Don't forget the special interest groups to get up live streaming, to get up onto Zoom, advise them to go onto WebEx. I would say probably 20 to 30 divisions we're talking about here, and probably 12 regions. And I saw nothing being done by anyone else at national, and that's poor. It's extremely poor. But I would aim to. I want to change that. I will change that. I would say to your people that are setting up your division, your example there should be the NMRA, not on Drupal, which is what the current programming language is. We're getting a bit technical here, but the current website is very unuser friendly unless you're a technical person to actually make edits to. But the NMRA should be providing hosting and websites to all regions and divisions. There's a stipend that goes down to regions and divisions from your membership. It's very small. Most of it sits and stays with national. Regions do earn money or have money from other sources, but some regions are quite rich. As John said, some divisions are quite cash rich, but we're looking here at the health of the whole organization. So there should just be website hosting. There should be, whether it's through WordPress or something else, the IT infrastructure in place. John can't get membership information. I struggle to get membership information in the UK. I can't even email members in the UK because of the legal requirements in this country. And I can't get membership information on the whole organisation without going through one single source, which is taking people weeks. At national level either, as a member of the national board, and so that has to change. The membership system has to be modernised. People, when they join, have to join immediately. We have to stop blaming the regions and divisions for things. These are our problems, our being national. Somebody joins the organisation, they should do it online. They should be a member immediately. They should have a digital membership card. They should be able to access the member database, not the member database, but member features of the website, members area of the website and stuff. It should be instant. It's instant on Netflix. It's instant for I hate to say it, but the National Rifle Association, it's instant. I'm not a member of it because I'm in the UK, but I was in the States one day and I happened to be in a waiting room and saw some of their promotional material, and then went and did a bit of research myself, because they're a big organisation and they charge less than the NMRA for membership, and the toys are similarly very expensive, just as your new Sound DCC loco is. So them and other organisations similar to them are able to do this because they adopt the franchise model. They say, we are here to empower people, and that's what we should be discussing at national level. In my opinion, use youth policy as an example because it's now pretty much been enacted. There are family-friendly memberships in the NMRA. We did absolutely nothing to coincide with the launching of that policy to actually promote them. We didn't say anyone who's a young member joins at the membership price, an adult, so that you've got your parent or guardian there and conform to the rules. We give you your membership for, I think the family fee is like $7. So, or even better still, in my opinion, for free, because the person's not interested. They just come in and bring in their young person along, and we want young people to come into the hobby. That's the whole point of growing the hobby and getting new ideas in. So there's lots to do, Lionel. There's really lots to do, and unless people elect the people with the knowledge and skills to drive the and the will to drive the organisation forward in sufficient numbers to make a difference, then you're looking at 10, not 3 more years. You're looking at 10 more years of the same thing, and I hate looking at the decline of the organisation over the last 10 years and longer, but particularly it's declined in the last 10 years. The NMRA may cease to be the presence it is in the hobby in another 10 years' time. I don't think we can take another 3 years of the organisation going in the direction that it is. It needs to fundamentally change. It needs to turn its focus at national level to the grassroots. Now, that's not the only thing that national does. There are things done at national level, like the standards and conformance. They need to be supported as well. But ultimately, it's very right that when people turn around and say, "When was the last time you were on YouTube and you saw an advert for the NMRA?" Well, it'll be never. And so that's what national does. If it's you see an advert for McDonald's, you see an advert for KFC, that's done generally at a national level. It's not done by your local KFC or your local McDonald's. They are in the business of doing the do. That's what they should be focused on. And if the EPOS system in McDonald's goes down, it's not up to the local store manager to fix it. National or area organisation comes in and fixes it, and backed up by a big team nationally. That's what the NMRA needs to adopt. That's the model we need to adopt. But it takes investment, and it probably would reduce the reserves that are in the bank. But what's the point in sitting on money and watching your organisation go to dust? It's
Yeah, it's another good. That's another good question. Why do they have so much money in the? I don't understand what they need so much money for. So that's a question. Bruce.
Yes.
Are you as excited about these two guys as I am?
I am over the moon with these guys getting things going finally.
I know, eh?
Because one thing, and I'll say, when Gordy was first getting on about this NMRA X stuff about a year ago, I was sitting there, this is going to be outstanding if they can pull it off. Well, they fired up a 24-hour thing and pulled it off, and everybody said, holy cow. And it's only grown, and it is probably the best thing that has happened to the NMRA since it was formed in 1935, that this has really taken the NMRA, shown people what the NMRA can do with technology, bringing people together. I know there's divisions and regions and some of the special interest groups, they have more people active now doing the virtual stuff than they ever did before with the standard meeting format. So this is where the NMRA is going. The electronic stuff is great. Not to say we don't need the face-to-face meetings. We still need those. That's always fun to be able to get out and see your buddies and shake hands and all that good stuff and have a meal and things. But what Gordy and NMRAX has done and all the offshoots of NMRAX have done is shown people how the NMRA can deliver a good program to its members at, in this case, virtually zero cost.
It is zero cost. You know something, Bruce? More people volunteered to get involved in the NMRAX team in the last weekend, which was the New Year's weekend, but coincided with a request for help. And these were highly qualified people in all the areas they'd volunteered for. And I don't just mean clinicians, I mean in the background.
Yeah.
And then more people volunteered in the last weekend than were involved on the first weekend of NMRAX. That's how much people recognize the benefit it's bringing to the organization, that they want to get involved in it and work with a bunch of crazy Aussies and a Brit. I mean, that's all, you've got to be committed just to do that.
Can you think, Gordy, can you think of anything else that's happened in the last, 5 to 6 years that's been a great benefit to the hobby?
I think, to the hobby, that's
Bruce,
difficult. To NMRA members.
Bruce, you want to take this one?
What's that?
Can you think of anything else from a technological standpoint that has helped the hobby greatly in the last, 5 to 6 years?
It'd be like DCC.
No, I mean, the main thing that's
John, you want to try?
Yeah, I would say podcast.
Any particular podcast?
Gosh, what is the name of that thing again?
Modelers Lie.
If I could I want to say, all kidding aside, the one of the most important things that happened to me this year, listening to this podcast and other podcasts, but listening to this and thinking about it, was I had to realize that as a 61-year-old model railroader, not everybody in this hobby has the same origin story that I do. When us 60-year-olds sit around, at the division meet or in the bar, we all can really connect with this story about the train set under the tree and the teenage years with the cars and the girls and all that kind of stuff. But it's just not the way everybody sees it, right? And there's a whole new world out there I got partly exposed to this year. And this is why I think it's really, really important to have somebody running for president like Gordy. Gordy is half my age. But if I were going to start over and build the NMRA all over again, I would not build it for me. I would build it for him. I would build it for a 30-year-old, which is what happened in 1935, right? It was built for the young guys who were not, and it's true, as the guys, I know the NMRA guys sort of stepped into the doo-doo this year when they were talking about, kind of, we're really mostly interested in the retiree or near retiree. And there's a truth to that, because that's typically the person with the time and the money and all that sort of thing. But we need to build the association so that all these 30-year-old people you've been interviewing, Lionel, the 20-year-olds, would look at the NMR and say, yeah, I want to do that. I want to be in that. I get that. Now, there's some big headwinds. Young people don't join things the same way we did. There's some societal changes, but I think that's all bullshit, because no matter whether you're 20 or 50 or 100, you're listening to this because you love trains. Yeah. And we need to build an association where we don't have 18,000 members. Gordy, we have 100,000, right? We have 180,000. We have, there
are more than a million.
That will change.
There are
more than
a million model railroaders in North America.
To have 100,000 members would change the business model so much. It would help us to get away from this scarcity of we don't have enough money or enough people or enough bandwidth or whatever it is. So I just think we really need not just fresh blood, but people that look at it. In my business, working with organizational development, I always value the one person sitting around the conference room table who has the courage to say, where are you guys coming from? You are totally thinking about this all wrong.
Yeah.
And we need a dose of that right now, I think.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening right this minute. I mean,
Yep, absolutely.
Sometime in the next month and a half, you're going to hear an interview with two guys. I've talked about them a lot. John Caffarelli and Cam Neely. These are two young guys, and they're 22, 23-year-old guys. They one in Chicago, one in Indianapolis when they found each other. And they found each other on Facebook. Both have spectacular layouts. Both love the hobby. And they're young guys. And there's another guy coming up who started his own 3D printing of locomotive shells. He's 20. There's a ton of people that are below the age of 40. Like, I think way more than anybody realizes. It's just that they don't belong to the NMRA because they see no use for it. But if you made it a global, if the NMRA, if the membership allows themselves to elect Gordy as president, somebody who lives on an island in the North Atlantic off the coast of Scotland and realizes that the world is now our oyster, and it doesn't matter where you live, so long as you have a computer and can speak up, the hobby could change so dramatically over the next 10 years. And exactly and the kind of things you're saying too, John. I mean, you've said a lot of really good things that I'm very excited. I hope you get on the board too, because you've said a lot of exciting things about understanding the difference, from the board to the grassroots level and connecting with all those people. And you're right. That's what needs to be happening. The board needs to be accessible. And not just honest to God. I know I'm offending somebody, and that's kind of par for the course. But honest to God, up until recently, one of the benefits of being on the board was getting free trips and getting free convention registrations. And you guys are going to change that. I'm assuming that's not why either one of you are running. Am I correct?
No,
I don't even.
No, I know absolutely. I would rather stay on my island and get stuff done. I moved to my island. There's 410 people live on my island, and my island. It's a bit of a Braveheart reference.
Bury.
My island. I'm the most famous person. I'm the most famous model railroader on my island. However, there's about 5 model railroaders on the island, and I've doubled the number of NMRA members on the island already this year. I've already recruited one.
Are there seriously 5 model railroaders on your island?
Yeah, in Orkney there is a person who produces British model railway detail parts.
Really?
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
There's a commercial business run from his house, and he also does ship models and all kinds of detail parts. When you live on an island and it's cold and windy, you want to stay in your house. You look for hobbies that keep you based.
Yeah, but I don't think the hobby is about staying in your house because it's cold and windy. I think this hobby is more people are interested in this hobby than we can even possibly imagine.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing, Lionel, is that the way the course of life has not significantly changed in the last 300 years. People reach a level of education. They complete their education. They go and establish themselves in a career, doing an apprenticeship or training at your college or university, and they then have a family. And so that's not changed. So why would we expect the NMRA to be any different? And so people that are in the NMRA, that, as John says, are in their 60s, that sit around in the bar, I tend to outlive most of them in the bar, but that's a different story. And they're in the bar and they're talking about similar experiences and similar stories and starting from a similar point. Most of them were model railroaders when they were younger and were maybe not members of the NMRA. So, in this whole thing of looking at people newly retired as people we want to recruit as members, well, they're already joining as members. So we're kind of pissing in our own pot, right? Yeah. But it's kind of, we know that those people exist because nothing in life has fundamentally changed from the circle of life from when we were younger, or when those 60-year-olds were younger, to today. Maybe the gadgets and the way that people talk and the way that people dress has changed, thankfully. So in certain people's dress senses that maybe hasn't changed, but those things have changed. But fundamentally, the circle of life hasn't changed, and so those people still exist. They can still participate. Just because they're working full time like myself doesn't mean that you can't be involved. It's like 1:45 in the morning, and I'm recording a podcast with you in Canada, Bruce in Canada, and John in the States, and me in Orkney on the little island in Orkney. So it doesn't mean that we're not going to get engaged in it. And so, in my opinion, every model railroader in the world is a target, should see benefit from the NMRA. And if they're not, why not? And if that's financial, we need to find a way to reduce the price of membership. If we double the number of members that we have today, we're not going to double the operating costs of an organization, because some costs are a fixed level. We're not going to double the operating costs. So if we had 30,000 members, if we had 50,000 members, there will be some increased operating costs, but ultimately there'll be the ability potentially to reduce the cost of membership. And then you have even more members join. And if you introduce auto renewal, you'll not lose them. It's all basic stuff that isn't being done, because in the world of the blind, the one-eyed man is always king, and that's where we're at. And that's ultimately the choice that members have: is do we see the light and move forward as the organisation, or do we just want the status quo? And neither me nor John have said today or ever said that we want to reduce any or remove anything that members currently have the opportunity to do today. Nothing at all. No, we don't want to change what the organisation does. We don't want to get rid of the print magazine. We don't want to get rid of SIGs. We don't want to get rid of divisions. We don't want to get rid of regions, or local clubs, or face-to-face meetings, or the AP programme, or anything. We want to enhance your experience and enhance the experience of our volunteers at grassroots level. And that is all that we're here to do. And people get scared of change. We're not trying to bring in fundamental change. We're trying to empower people to do more and to grow themselves and our organization.
Okay, Gordy, how many members are there right now?
There are about 17,500, but we've seen another reduction in membership in the last 12 months.
Okay. I've been trolling through the NMRA website while we've been talking all this time. Why is there no place on the website where it says how many NMRA members there are?
Because it's going down, and because we're not honest with ourselves and the model railroaders as honest as I feel we should be. And this is where it all comes back to Gordy has integrity. Absolutely, I have integrity. I was in the Navy. Integrity is instilled into you from day one. All right. Even if you haven't started shaving in the Navy, when you join the Navy, you shave every day unless you've got a chitty that says you can grow a full face beard, and you can't grow a full face beard because you're doing BA parties, fire damage control, and you have to wear a mask, so you can't get a mask seal with a beard. So when you first join, you have to shave, and even if you're too young to start shaving, like I was at 16, if you get on that parade ground and they don't see that you've shaved, and you get called out for it, you've got to be honest, and you've got to hold yourself to account, and you've got to say, no, I didn't shave this morning. You've got to go up there and get shaved. And it's exactly the same with the NMRA. I've asked for this information as a board member. I have said, show me the 5-year trends. I am still waiting for that. I know I'll get that information, but it should be at my fingertips. It absolutely should be there. And I can unfortunately tell you that yet again, as the trend has been from my knowledge from when Charlie Getz became president, it possibly was before then, but I only have that living history of being that involved with National, that we've seen a year-on-year decline. We need to understand that. And it's not because the hobby's dying, and it's not because people are dying, because if the hobby was dying, I would be able to buy the track I need for my layout, and I can't buy it because too many people are buying it, because there's so many people taking up the hobby this year and last year. Right. So the hobby ain't dying, it's growing like exponentially out of control, but the NMRA is seeing the other way. Now, I think that some of the digital stuff that we've done has reversed that curve, and that's what me and John seek to prove by doing a survey of model railroaders to ask them. But ultimately, we don't understand, and we should understand, but we don't understand. If we're absolutely being honest and maintaining integrity, we don't understand why we're losing members beyond my assumptions, which are generally based on feedback, because I actually ask people and listen to people, which is things like auto renewal. There are obvious, blatant things we can do to help, but ultimately, because we don't ask and don't seek the answer from people, we don't know why we're losing members or why we're not recruiting people. We do know that we recruit a lot of net new members. We have done since Christina came along doing the marketing and the social media team. We recruit a lot of people, but we don't retain them. We don't understand why, and it's not, we need to get that level of maturity as an organization in our data and in ourselves, that level of integrity, honesty and integrity, to ask ourselves the difficult questions.
Well, I think going to what John talked about with the top of the organization helping out the rest of the organization. What he failed to mention was, John, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what you were when you talk about if the head of the organization can help the divisions and the regions and what have you, it'll make it more fun for those guys. It'll make it more fun for the grassroots guys to operate because they know they've always got help behind them. So it seems less overwhelming and more like a fun task. And if it's fun, then people will participate even more. But
yeah, when you go to the local hamburger joint, you want to order a hamburger. You don't want to have a discussion with the manager there about his relationship with National.
No.
And how McDonald's keeps screwing up, this and that. All those things happen in organizations. But too often we forget the mission really here is about trains. It's, educating and promoting and having fun in the hobby and all this other stuff. I think in some respects, if Gordy and I and others get elected to the board and do our jobs well, it won't be about us at all. It won't be that we won't be having so much chatter around policy. It needs to be more about trains. That's what we're doing. I have close friends that are on the board, and I respect a bunch of them. And they're good folks. But what we don't have is vision. I don't think we don't have a strong vision of what we're trying to do. We don't have a good connection with how do we reinvent this thing for the younger modeler in the 21st century. We don't have the courage to figure out how to make some of this other stuff work. There's just too much no all the time.
Well, that's exactly it. It's if I had thought about the negative aspects of doing this podcast when I started, it never would have happened. I mean, I was just doing it for the fun of it, and I've created we have created a whole a nation of people. Even you were saying to me earlier tonight, John, of all the people you've met from the podcast.
Absolutely. I just wrote down while we were talking here, how come we don't have an AP certificate for weathering or for 3D printing or for photography? Or how about a certificate for podcasting or video production?
Well, because they do fall under some of the current things.
Well, they do.
They're not called out in the requirements. And
that is actually, Bruce, that's the response you get all the time. Oh, that's already covered. But look, if your mental model is to defend what you have, then you're going to always come to that conclusion. Yeah, that's already covered. But if your model was instead, if your driver was, but I'm trying to figure out how to get a 30-something interested in this program, and this is what they're doing.
Well, podcasting and some of that stuff is already under your office.
It is, but it's hidden. So it is there. All of those things are there.
All those things are in there somewhere.
They're hidden. Sure. They're hidden. And we nothing that we do as an organization is wrong. Nothing that we're trying to do, none of our aims are wrong. Just sometimes we can do not sometimes we can always do things better. And those things should be more called out. And that's something that I know the AP guys are working on. They've rewritten some of the stuff. They've added it in. I got some of my author points from doing a podcast and involved in podcasting stuff. But one thing I want to say before I miss the opportunity to say it, Lionel, I'd really appreciate if you could put me into touch with the guys who are working on setting up that division, and I'd like to help them. And talk to them and see what they need and see what I can do, because I'm in a similar position. Board national stuff aside, I'm in Scotland running a division that's geographically challenged and it is difficult. It's extremely difficult.
Okay, Mike Hawk, when you hear this, contact Gordy because he wants to help you. Although I know you guys are working hard there already. Boy, Bruce, I'll tell you. I sure hope these guys get elected because I think the world is about to change.
I'll just throw out. We're wrapping up. Every NMRA member gets a chance to vote for Gordy.
Okay.
Everybody in the Eastern District can vote for John, and the Eastern District is the states of Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, and the District of Columbia. So if you live in that, you can get a chance to vote for our friend John.
Perfect. And I highly recommend that you vote for John. I think everybody will be glad they did. And same goes for Gordy. I'm very excited about this. And listen, you two guys, if you get elected, I think we should do this on a regular basis and bring in some other board members, and we can have you answer questions and make yourselves available. That would be a great way to start.
I would do that every month for you if you want. I intend to, if I'm elected, I intend to be a lot more open and transparent about sharing what I can that's going on in the organisation with everyone. I don't care whether you're a member or not, because if you're a model railroader, the NMRA matters to you, whether you're a member or not.
All right, that's perfect. And if you come on regularly, I'll pay you double.
Whoa, excellent! That's 2 beers, 2 beers a year. Excellent.
Hey, John, do you like beer?
I do like beer.
Okay.
Absolutely. I'm a recovering non-drinker these days. So.
A recovering non-drinker? Okay.
Yeah. But, what's not to like about beer?
Okay.
Our beer of choice is Beck's Blue.
My problem is that I like it too much.
Okay. What's a recovering non-drinker? Somebody help me out here.
John doesn't drink alcohol anymore.
Okay, all right. I gotcha.
So we will go for a hot dog and a Pepsi.
Absolutely. That's good, John. You keep it up, buddy. I think that's about it, Bruce. I think we got a caller a day.
Pretty close too.
Yeah. Can you give out the email address?
Yes, our email address. We'd love to hear from you and encourage you to contact us. Our email address is moderslife, modelers with 1 L, moderslife@gmail.com.
And I often make jokes about our buddy Ralph Renzetti, Ralphie boy. But in reality, Ralph is a very valued friend and a good guy. And Ralph, I'm just you play the part, buddy. That's it. You know what, Bruce? I'll say this once, I'll say it 1,000 times. If you got into a hockey fight, you were first man in. The next guy right behind you would always be Ralph.
For sure.
And we have a website, modelerslife.com. If you go there, you'll find out all kinds of stuff. And also, John, did you know this? If you go to Midwest Model Railroad, and their URL is midwestmodelrr.com. If you go there, you scroll across the top of their navigation bar and click on AML. There is a wide world of AML merchandise right there from Midwest Model Railroad. There's T-shirts and hats and mugs and hoodies, all kinds of stuff you can have. So, and if you're a $10 Patreon member, you get a 5% discount every month on your first order every month. What else can we tell everybody? Yeah, join Patreon, because if you like this, every Tuesday we have a Patreon. It's 16 cents a day. It costs you 16 cents a day, and you get twice as many podcasts. What else? I think that's it, isn't it, Bruce?
The Patreon chat.
Patreon chat on Wednesdays. That's always fun. There's lots of people pass through that, and there's some regulars, and lots of people come by and talk on that. And that's a fun thing to do. Gordy, you go there almost every Wednesday. You started off.
I kick it off, in the late evening in the UK, and so anyone wants to actually give me a bit of earache or ask me any questions, and you're a Patreon of the AML, it's a great way to reach straight to Gordy. So.
That's right. Are you a Patreon member, John?
I'm not. Sounds like I'm not doing this right, am I?
No, some of the best podcasts are on Tuesdays. That's our very own Kaylee Zhang refers to it as the Antics channel.
I know Kaylee quite well.
Yes. So if you like having fun and you want to meet some more of the characters, you come on Tuesdays. It costs $5 a month. Or if you spend $10 a month, you get a free T-shirt every year and some swag. And for $5 a month, 16 cents a day, you can get double the number of podcasts. So there's all that stuff too.
Sounds like a great deal.
Yeah.
Well, I've certainly enjoyed listening to the ones I've been listening to this year.
Yeah. Who's your favorite? Who's your favorite on the podcast so far? Not including me. Who's your favorite character on the podcast so far?
Oh, geez. I don't know.
All right. Okay. Where was the last one?
Tony Cook has the best radio voice.
Oh, my God.
Tony has got the
Right?
best voice, no doubt.
Tony has
And
the smoothest voice
The
of all.
dulcet tones of Tony Cook.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's for certain.
All right.
But I like a bunch of them.
Okay. How do I sound?
You sound awesome. You
Okay.
sound like you know what you're doing.
Boy, I got him fooled. Are you ready? Can you handle the end, John?
Sure.
Yeah, you think so? You think you're qualified?
I don't know. Do
All
you
right.
have to be qualified?
Yeah, let's give it a try, eh? What do you think, Bruce? Should we let him try?
Got nothing to lose, right?
All right. Gordy?
Because there's at least 3 others can pitch in.
Yeah. Gordy, what do you think?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think John should do it with his NMRAX voice as well.
Oh, I like that. So remember, a Modeler's Life podcast is considered marginally adequate by 6 out of 10
Kilt-wearing Scottish model railroad presidents.
Mr. Strang's wardrobe provided by The Dashing Camper. For all your fashion and tent repair needs, trust The Dashing Camper.
It's another Lincoln Homer.